Hi Aquarius, this is Tisch Aitken, and this is your monthly report for the month of June 2022. If you could please subscribe to my channel, I would really appreciate it. This has been a very intense time for all. We have been in eclipse season, and this has been an incredibly intense eclipse season, given that the eclipses were in the Taurus Scorpio axis, and the moon loves being in Taurus, and we did have a new moon eclipse occur in Taurus on April 30th, but it was just a day after Pluto, the planet of death and regeneration, stationed retrograde at 28 degrees of Capricorn in your house of endings and spirituality. And you know, Pluto, we feel that 5 days before and 5 days after, and that can bring with it major departures. The eclipse in Taurus, the moon loves being in Taurus, and that new moon eclipse was in your house of home and family, but it was coupled with Uranus, which is the modern ruler of your sign, the planet of chaos and surprise and the unexpected. And in the case of the beginning of the month, I had a few clients had out of the blue opportunities, which were phenomenal. Venus and Jupiter, which Venus rules the sign of Taurus. It was in Pisces at the time where it's exalted. Jupiter, the grand benefic, was also in Pisces where it loves to be and rules Pisces in ancient astrology. That brought a lot of prosperity, but the moon-Uranus combination did bring some jolts and unexpected news and some sad news in some cases. You fast forward, and then the total lunar eclipse occurred in Scorpio on May 15th or May 16th, depending on where you live. For you, that eclipse occurred in your house of career and life goals. But this was a harsh eclipse. It squared Saturn in your sign within just a degree. So the moon does not like being in Scorpio. It's in its fall position. The moon is how you get your needs met. And it was a south node eclipse, which means that there is a release and letting go in the process towards the north node. And then moon in Scorpio involves a lot of death and loss and letting go. It is the sign of death and rebirth. And squaring Saturn, that's the reality planet. That's the planet of limitations. For you, probably a lot of focus on family and career in this past eclipse season, which really has been about 6 weeks and completed on May 30th with the new moon in Gemini. So as we begin the month of June, we are officially out of eclipse season, but it has been a really, really intense time. In the midst of the eclipse season, Jupiter, which is the luckiest planet, entered the Cardinal Fire sign of Aries until October 28th, and then it re-enters the last degree of Pisces, and will re-enter Aries December 20th. Jupiter's transiting in your house of communication and local community and networking. But the problem with Jupiter is a lucky planet. It does bring opportunity, and this is an excellent time for you for networking and getting involved in your community and in local events. But it also expands whatever it comes into contact with, and in this case, being in the Cardinal Fire sign of Aries, it's expanding rage. And we had a lot of planets transiting in Pisces, which deals with mental illness and addiction, among other things. And that was by the end of April, right before the first eclipse. We had 5 points transiting in the mutable water sign of Pisces in your house of endings and spirituality, and in your house of income and money and what you value. And it's a good energy for being creative. Jupiter was there, bringing a lot of new financial opportunities. It met up with Neptune, which is the modern ruler of Pisces, expanding the dream. And so you've had a lot of opportunity for bringing income in, but it also on the collective has expanded the need to escape, people relapsing, people feeling suicidal or acting on it, unfortunately. And now that Jupiter has entered Aries, this is another extension of mental illness, but that's a fire sign ruled by Mars, which rules guns and violence and anger and rage. It also is a cardinal sign that gets things going and makes things happen. It's about expanding through being courageous. That's where we need to go with this. We need to be wounded warriors in a very painful world. And we're hearing these devastating stories of a shooting of 19 children and 2 teachers, and a man being shot in the middle of the day on a New York subway. That doesn't happen. I know school shootings have happened more and more since the internet in the 90s. You didn't really hear about that much before the internet began, and this is the Saturn return of the internet. And that began when Saturn entered Aquarius in 91, and then it went public in 94. And that's when the internet began. And by the late 90s, the outer planets like Uranus and I believe Neptune were transiting in Aquarius. And that was a big, forward movement in technology, but more alienation from the internet. And that's really when I remember the shootings began. Like in 97, there was a big school shooting. And so with the Jupiter in Aries energy, we are seeing people expand rage and feeling a lot of frustration. But how do you utilize this to educate people? Maybe healing your local community, taking classes, teaching, learning, marketing, and sales. Saturn stations retrograde in your sign the very day after Mercury stations direct. And this is an opportunity for you to figure out, to reevaluate how you can structure your goals, because Saturn has been in your sign on and off since March 23rd of 2020. And it was a key player in that total lunar eclipse. So you probably felt it pretty strongly, whether it was issues with family or feeling blocked in your career or your overall life goals. How do you move ahead? If you haven't been working hard enough or in alignment with what you need to do, Saturn is like the judgment card. It's going to give it to you. And you want it to, because you really want to make the most of the cycle. Saturn rewards hard work, and it gives karmic rewards. And you have it in your house of self and immediate environment until March 7th of next year. But that's not that much longer. So really, we're working as much as you can. Uranus is the modern ruler of your chart, but Saturn is the ancient ruler, and it represents karma, responsibility, integrity, and hard work. Are you working in alignment with integrity and with discipline to really do what you need to do? Only you can answer that. So we begin the month, and there are a lot of planets transiting in both the signs of Aries and Taurus. In the case of Aries, we have Jupiter, the luckiest planet, entered Aries on May 10th. It will be there until October 28th, expanding through courage and passion, not through rage and anger. Mars, which is the god of war, entered the Cardinal Fire sign of Aries on May 24th, which unfortunately was the day of that awful school shooting in Texas. And anything at 0 degrees of the cardinal signs is at the world point. But Mars is how we take action, and it does like being in Aries because it's very effective. It's cardinal energy. It's just not moving. It's, some people can be brilliant at something, but they're not good at launching things. Those that have a lot of planets in cardinal signs, and they are Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, they really are able to catalyze things and launch them ahead. So we've got Mars in your house of communication, sales, and networking, and it will be there until July 5th. Also taking classes, learning, promoting yourself, teaching. Maybe you're taking a local trip. Eris, the goddess of discord, is also there fighting for what you want, and Chiron, the wounded healer. There's a lot of emphasis on home, family, relatives, real estate, and getting your needs met. Venus is transiting in Pisces until June 22nd, and it loves being in Taurus until June 22nd, and it loves being in Taurus. It's in your house of home and family. That brings more happiness and love in that area, and that's where the eclipse occurred at the end of April. So there could have been shocking news with family or disruption in that area, and this helps to quell that energy a bit. Let's see what else is transiting there. Uranus, the great awakener, that's the ruler of, that can bring more disruption, but you know, you've been working with that a few years now. The north node of karma, where you're meant to go to find security and build security in this world. And Mercury will station direct on June 3rd, and it's transiting in Taurus. So really evaluating how you get your needs met. If you have your own business, how can you be more productive in accomplishment? And with Jupiter expanding your house of communication, doing a lot of networking in many forms, and certainly in the new age of Aquarius, whatever you feel about social media, and I have a lot of mixed feelings myself, it's excellent for business, for promoting your business, for learning, and for interviewing and connecting with others if you're looking for a job. So we begin the month, and Mercury is at 26 degrees and 5 minutes of Taurus. It stations direct on June 3rd at 4 o'clock a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and it stations direct in your house of home and family. It initially retrograded on May 10th in Gemini, in romance and creativity and self-expression, and it was in its dignity at that time. So eclipses give us information, and a lot of information was delivered during this eclipse season for all of us. It returned to the sign of Taurus, which is evaluating your security, especially for you, your resources, how you earn money, and your values. And so Mercury is back, but it's squaring Saturn in your sign, and you could feel like your needs are not getting met, or that you have a lot of work to do that you're not able to accomplish. But keep moving ahead, because I do think that Jupiter and Mars will give you that push. Use it in a productive way. On the following day, on June 4th, Saturn retrogrades in your sign at 25 degrees and 15 minutes of the fixed air sign of Aquarius. This triggers the total lunar eclipse in your house of career and goals. It's also triggering Mercury in your house of security. And, you know, when an outer planet stations direct or retrograde, we feel the buildup 5 days before and 5 days after, and it exaggerates the characteristics of that planet, the pressure, the restrictions, the hard work. But it's also giving you a clue as to what you need to do before Saturn leaves your sign next March of 2023. The more you work with Saturn, the more you will benefit in the long term. It could bring amazing opportunities in the rest of your life, or for, you know, for a long time, or things that really build you. So it is a good cycle. It's just that it challenges you. On June 6th, the sun forms a very positive aspect to Chiron, the wounded healer, and that occurs at 4:44 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Good for romance, good for healing around that area, good for healing through your thoughts and ideas. On June 10th, Mercury forms a beautiful trine to Pluto, the planet of transformation, and that's a flow of energy, and that occurs at 5:21 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Good for research, good for dealing with your with healing and with dealing with getting your needs met. So that's nice energy. On June 13th, Mercury changes signs and enters the mutable air sign of Gemini, where it will be until July 5th, in your house of fun and creativity and romance and children and self-expression. That's a nice aspect if you're single, for meeting people. It's excellent for being creative, having fun and joy, no matter what your status is. So that's a nice energy, a compatible air sign. On June 13th, there is a full moon that takes place at 7:52 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time at 23 degrees and 25 minutes of the mutable fire sign of Sagittarius. And this full moon occurs in your house of friends and groups and community and acquaintances. Maybe there's a hiccup with some friends, maybe there's a little bit of a blow up, but it's nothing like a total lunar eclipse or solar eclipse. But a full moon eclipse in Scorpio, that's heavy emotionally. This could bring culmination, and again, maybe it's a bit emotional, but Sagittarius is a very optimistic sign. On June 16th, the Sun forms a helpful aspect to Saturn, and this occurs at 3:13 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's a stabilizing energy. Saturn's transiting in your sign, good for romance, good for creativity, good for feeling structured for you. But then the Sun squares Neptune, and that occurs later in the day, and that occurs at 9:41 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That could feel a little confusing. It could be potentially issues with finances or just feeling a little bit tired. Tap into the dream and the creative potential with that. On June 20th, Mercury, the planet of communication and information, forms a very helpful aspect to Jupiter, the luckiest planet. This is excellent for getting your needs met, for being creative, for romantic opportunities, and for feeling optimistic. On June 21st, the solstice occurs. In the northern hemisphere, the sun is at its maximum declination above the celestial equator, and it represents the beginning of the summer season in the northern hemisphere. And in the southern hemisphere, the sun is at its minimum, the lowest declination, and it begins the winter season. It's the longest day in the northern hemisphere and the shortest in the southern. And the sun stops still for approximately 3 days, and you reflect the season ahead. And the sun will enter the cardinal water sign of Cancer at 5:14 Eastern Daylight Time. It will be there until July 22nd in your house of work and health and daily routine. And this is a healing energy for you, for dealing with health issues, maybe nutrition or an exercise program, and also good for shining at work and in your daily routines. And the sun stands still. Sol means sun in Latin, and sistere means to stop. And you reflect on the season. I cast the chart for the solstice, and I cast it for Washington, D.C., because I'm in the northern hemisphere. And the chart has Gemini ascendant. Therefore, Mercury is the ruler of the chart in its dignity in Gemini, where it loves to be, in the house of spirituality and empathy. There is a lot of emphasis in Aries. The moon will be in Aries, conjunct Jupiter, the luckiest planet, in the house of friends and groups. Mars will be up there, and Chiron and Eris as well, bringing healing, fighting for what you want, but expanding through courage and love within community, finding your tribe and expanding together. There's also a lot of emphasis of planets in Taurus in the spiritual house. Venus loves being in Taurus. It's conjunct the north node of Karma, from selfless love. Uranus, the great awakener, is also conjunct the north node of Karma, and in the house of spirituality and empathy, finding unique and futuristic ways to reach people, to bring souls together in a very alienated way, and innovative pursuits to help people, to raise consciousness. And on June 22nd, the other thing about the solstice that I love is that Venus, the planet of love and beauty, forms a beautiful trine to Pluto. And this occurs at 4:23 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, bringing a lot of love and healing and empowerment through love, and for you, healing around your needs and family. And that's a beautiful energy for all. On June 22nd, Venus changes signs and enters the mutable air sign of Gemini, where it will be until July 17th, transiting in your house of romance, love affairs, and fun. Excellent for dating, excellent for having fun with friends, great for being creative. Venus loves being in Taurus, very creative placement. And this is the house of creativity and self-expression. So that brings more joy. And you've got Venus in a fellow air sign. So that's very nice. On June 25th, Jupiter, which is the grand benefic, aspects the north node of karma. Pay attention to whom you meet and what comes up at that time. That could bring fated opportunities and connections. And again, Jupiter's transiting in your house of networking and marketing and sales and local communities. So maybe go out there. And on June 27th, Mars, which is the planet of action and passion, forms a helpful aspect to Saturn, which is in your sign. And that is a very helpful energy. It occurs at 6:29 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Good for getting work done and being very effective. June 28th is a big day for a few reasons. There's another station of an outer planet, Neptune, the planet of dreams and empathy, as well as delusion and fantasy and escapism. Stations retrograde at 3:54 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time at 25 degrees and 27 minutes of the mutable air sign, water sign of Pisces. And we feel that build up 5 days before and 5 days after. For you, it's falling in your house of money and income and possessions and what you value. And, you know, we feel a haze. It can be deception could get uncovered, things can get dissolved, or people could feel very listless or dreamy. It's very creative energy, and it can be good for you for being creative in how you build new financial opportunities and just in your creative ventures. But it also can be, you know, a little bit confusing. There is a new moon that day, so that's a positive energy. The sun squares Jupiter, the luckiest planet, at 8:59 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's not a negative energy. It's expansive. It can be a little bit indulgent, but it is an optimistic energy, I feel. The new moon occurs at 10:52 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time at 7 degrees and 23 minutes of the cardinal water sign in your house of health and work and daily routine. If you've been blocked with professional opportunities, this is a new moon to do the law of abundance and plant new seeds, because this brings you new work opportunities, and the moon loves being in Cancer. And then at 10:52 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Venus forms a beautiful aspect to Jupiter, the luckiest planet, and that brings a lot of creativity and prosperity in this new moon chart. Do the law of abundance to magnetize opportunities on June 28th. Tap into manifesting, because Neptune is so strong, that the energy is so strong, and Neptune rules the imagination. And to magnetize and to do manifesting, you have to really, you know, work with your unconscious mind. I wish you a lot of luck, Aquarius. Saturn is retrograding. It's time for you to really figure out your journey before it leaves your sign next March. Take care.